Here you go there. We're going to start with the starts. This might need a little while. Harry Skelton, why were the starts at Cheltenham so bad?
Yeah, they were. I think what it starts to, I think the fact that jockeys are getting called out of the weighing room too early. We're down at the start for too long. You get to the start, the first thing you say to the starter, how long? They reply most of the time, somewhere between 2 and 3 minutes. Take the mare's hurdle, for example, 24 runners. I would have probably said at least 16 have probably all had the same instruction. Mm-hmm. Good start, try and win the first 5 or 6. Well, you know, that's a pretty hard thing to do when you've got 24 runners. I think in Ireland, obviously, their starts are very different. Once they've all lined up, they're all straight. They might be far away back, but they're let go. Whereas here in England, we're told to walk or jig jog. They're a herd animal. If you've got 14 in a line and one of them breaks to a jig jog, it's pretty hard for the man next to you not to break. Yeah. They will naturally follow to go forward. The reason I think we're asked to walk or jig jog is because that it is asked that we don't gather too much speed up before the first fence or before the first hurdle. Now, most hurdles and fences are pretty much half a furlong to a furlong from the start. A horse can pretty much get up any length of speed then and pretty much nearly be into top gear. So I don't really buy into that the fact that it can slow us down so we don't have as many fallers. Now, if you've started them a little bit further back, they're all in a straight line. If we're a bit far off the tape, I think, you know, let the starters who are professionals, let them pull the trigger and let us go.
OK, do you think it's a case here then, Lee, of the starter being undermined by an overarching instruction and his instincts to let them go rolling along, if you like? And sometimes we'd be screaming at the team, let him go, let him go, let him go.
Yeah, potentially.
And then the flags would be waved.
Potentially, but it almost doesn't matter who is to blame. They just need to get something changed about it, because what we're left with, no matter who's at fault, whether it's, as Harry says, 3/4 of the field been told to be up there in the first 5, or the starter feeling he has to do things a certain way. We just can't keep doing this all the time, because it's a bit like deja vu. We're getting it again and again and again.
It was worse this year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was worse. But asking us, you know, in the mare's race, 24 runners, asking us to walk or jig jog in and to be in with a certain distance of the tape, so we all get this perfect, lovely start, it's not reality. You know, in the Triumph, go back and watch the Triumph start. They were a long way back, but he let them go.
Yeah, and actually Fridays were much better. He was letting them go much further back.
Because he's probably thought, do you know what, I need to let these go.
Yeah.
And it worked well. There was no fallers at the first. You know, you're never going to get away from a horse falling at the first just because you think it's gathered up too much speed.
Yeah.
Are you better off letting them go a bit further back so they're more strung out, so the horses have more room to look at the obstacle? Yeah. And more balanced and more, you know, or are you better off letting them go real close to the tape where they're all crammed in and they can't see the first flight or fence anyway?
What's your take on races like the Stayers Hurdle and the Potemps Final and the Albert Bartlett, where they're coming in around the bend and those horses on the outside?
Exactly, it's very difficult on a bend. The man on the outside has got to go quicker than the man on the inside. And like I say, they're herd animals. As soon as one breaks into a trot, it's so hard to not let yours go forward with it. And we're, like, a lot of jockeys are told, don't miss the break, make sure you get a good start. And when you've got 24 runners and 16 have all been told to do the same thing, it's very hard. But I think you need to let the professional starters do their job. If they're all in line, they're all facing the right way. The cross-country race, the only one reason I think they didn't let them go is because they were just too far back. But it was a good start.
Yeah.
Let them go.
Jumping at the Cheltenham Festival. Now, a lot of people, quite rightly, said, how can all these good horses who've been winning races and not making a mistake be making so many mistakes this year? Obviously, Constitution Hill and State Man both fell. Barry Geraghty posited a theory to me about the new hurdles, the new padded hurdles, saying that horses have scant respect for them and they don't have enough heft to them. Any theories on that, or is it simply the heat of competition inducing more error?
I think Constitution Hill, what happened to him was, I think we could all say something was coming a little bit with him. He'd taken a few chances. He got a bit. He finds everything so easy. Do you know what I mean? He's got a bit lackadaisy. He's taken a chance and come down. State man, wing the last. He just didn't put his landing gear out. You know, pulled down end, perfect stride, good and positive. He should have stood up. He didn't. He fell. Yeah, I think the rubber hurdles, from a safety point of view, from a trainer's side of things, you know, horses are coming back with a lot less injuries, a lot less speedy, you know, sort of cuts and...
the little birch cuts and that kind of thing that you would have got before.
They are a lot safer, and there's evidence behind that. Do I prefer the old-style wooden hurdles? I probably do, because I think it teaches a horse long... You know, further down the road, I think an old birch hurdle teaches a horse a little bit better than those rubber ones.
Technique,
technique, exactly. Yeah. So they learn to respect a little bit. Where these rubber hurdles, they can just gallop out through one and don't make any shape at all and just ramp off them. You're teaching a horse bad habits almost. You know, where, you know, you're borrowing Peter to pay Paul. Are you better off teaching the horse properly? Or are you better off letting it get away with these silly mistakes and then maybe further down the line becoming an average jumper?
You know, the final fight of the New Lions race as well. I mean, for a second from the stand, it looked like he might be in danger. Was that...
Oh, we were... that's how close it is, though, at the last. It's millimetres. But, touchwood, he's... You know, we like to teach them the right way. We teach them from the very, very start, before they ever run in a bumper, teach them to jump before they can gallop.
Let's talk about the scoreline. 8 British wins played, 20 Irish wins. 10 of those were Willie Mullins. The first day, Britain had half of those 8. That was 4-3 after day 1. So it's a pretty meagre tally. 4 further wins over 3 days. There had been widespread expectation the gap might close, Lee, but it hasn't.
Yeah, at the end of day 1, Nick, Ireland in crisis. Only 3 winners. Wholesale reviews, desperate situation. But yeah, then 28. I mean, you could say John Bond, maybe, you know, had he got around, would he have won the champion chase? What would that have been, 19.9? It's still deflating, disappointing. You look at races like the Supreme in the end. Did we have one British runner in the Supreme?
One run, 151 shot.
No British runners in the Broadway. None at all. Not one British horse deemed good enough to run in that race. We won the Arkle, but we only had 2 British novice chasers deemed good enough to run in the Grade 1 novice chases at the Cheltenham Festival.
There were 3 in your race? You and 2 others, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there was...
you and 6 Mile Bridge and Potter's Charm.
Yeah, look, we want to have more runners in these races, of course we do, but you also got to be realistic of your chances. You can line a horse up in the Supreme and be 125 to 1.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you now, it ain't no joy getting into that paddock and having to turn right and go and unsaddling enclosure. I don't buy into the Great Britain, Ireland too much. Should probably say Willie Mullins versus the rest. 10 winners, incredible week.
Yeah. And that really is the narrative, isn't it?
No, that's the narrative. He's running 11 horses in the Triumph, 6 in the Supreme, 6 in the Turners. Incredible, you know. But we've all got to pull our socks up and try and catch him up.
There was that moment, Lee, where Willie Mullins said in the interview after the Triumph hurdle, "Yeah, I saw it was Tony Bloom's colours, and I thought, oh, that must be one of mine," just as they were coming to the last. And you did sort of think, well, you've got to admire that on one hand, just the sheer chutzpah of it, and the sheer strength and domination of the yard and the ability to prepare a horse first time over hurdles to win a race like that. Well, and then on the other hand, find that just faintly depressing.
Well, yeah, not only that, Nick, but that was a horse who was in effect being prepared for Royal Ascot by running at the Cheltenham Festival with a longer term view to going for Melbourne Cup.
I know. He just redrawing the possibilities of what you can do with a horse, isn't he, Harry?
Yeah, and I think like Tony Bloom, I think obviously he really enjoys the fact that this horse is going to be dual purpose horse and can get a lot of enjoyment off him on the flat. He was 100 to 1, but he did beat East India Dock at Royal Ascot.
Now you tell me, for goodness sake.
I didn't know that either till after the race, but
I wonder if
just incredible.
So if Darren Yates got a little bit back from the New Lion winning, as he said he was going to if he won at Cheltenham, there was a deal in the, kicker in the deal. Did you think Keir got a bit off Poneros? Do you think Keir got a bit back for the Triumph Hurdle win? New races, did they work? Did the Jack Richards work in place of the old Turners? Did it work making the cross-country a handicap, or did it make very little difference at all? Generally speaking, what do you think?
Big tick. Yeah.
Big tick for the... Well, National Hunt Chase definitely worked in terms of numbers.
Definitely worked. Much more competitive race. And whilst I understand, while traditionalists would want amateur riders still to be riding in that race, just logically, if you want a big each-way size field running in a novice chase over a marathon trip, you surely ideally want professional jockeys riding those, not amateurs. The cross-country chase, there were fears expressed in some quarters that it would disadvantage the better horse. Well, clearly a handicap does disadvantage the better horses, but it would excessively disadvantage them. The top weight won the race, and it was I don't know if it was a coincidence, Nick, but that was the first cross-country chase at Cheltenham I can ever remember where they went a proper end-to-end gallop. They very rarely do that. We had on that occasion, in this race, and the novice handicap chase was much more interesting than what we've had before, albeit we've had some good renewals like Grey Dawning. But we had a situation this year where we had, what was it, 12 runners in the two Grade 1 novice chases?
For their own sake, these races worked as betting races, competitive races, etc., etc. What it didn't do was bolster the fields in the Arkle and the Brown, which were pretty pitiful.
But what would they have been like?
I know, but you'd have had a match in each of them, just about, wouldn't you? Because Ballyburn would have run in the old Turners. And what do you think?
Yeah, I think obviously a few of the changes that they made, I think maybe the cross-country race, it probably opened up a little bit more, and the likes of Late Night Pass, who was second, give him a lot more of a chance. Whether they're all right, and I don't know, but I suppose the 4 mile or 3 mile 7 now, but that was a competitive race.
Yeah,
you have to say it made it a lot more competitive, probably.
OK, let's talk about the crowds and TV audiences. ITV reporting 1.8 million watched the Gold Cup, which is the highest number, I think, since 2017. So that's very encouraging. Horse going for a third consecutive win in the race. You'd hope that that was one of the reasons behind it. Of course, the later scheduling of the feature races may well have been beneficial as well. That might well have worked. Richard Willoughby, the editor, was talking about that to me earlier last week. The crowds were, as expected, down, though Thursday and Friday were comparable to last year. Tuesday was a fair bit down, and Wednesday was the most notably down, Lee. Yeah, the lowest festival attendance this century on the Wednesday. The crowds thing was always going to be a narrative because Guy Lavendew, I know we got due on, he had spoken in advance in an open letter published in the Racing Post saying that we were going to have a reduced attendance again this year, that it would be north of 200,000. I actually think in the end, it was probably further north of 200,000 than they maybe expected. About 219,000 over the 4 days compared to around 230 last year, compared to 240 the year before. You had the COVID year spike, post-COVID year spike of 280. More realistic barometer is probably 250 the year before that. Was the post-COVID era, or if you like, those 2 years, was that where the local businesses were threatening to kill the goose that laid the golden egg, do you think? Well, and some still aren't it, because some of the accommodation prices, hotel prices in Cheltenham are obscene. I don't care what the local Chamber of Commerce says, they are obscene. They released a statement yesterday, the Chamber of Commerce, saying it's all hunky-dory. It's not hunky-dory. I spoke to racegoers. I spoke to one racegoer who said he was on his own this year because his two mates who used to come just won't pay the prices anymore. The attendance fall is clearly significant, and at some point it has to correct itself. It has to. You have to start building back up again. And yet, I spoke to a number of people last week. Said it was more comfortable. They just enjoyed it more. They just enjoyed it more, Nick. They could get around easier. They could get drinks easier. They weren't... Apparently a lot more bar stuff, I heard anecdotally, and I didn't obviously visit a bar or not on the racecourse. Our assistant trainer visited the Guinness Village enough, and he's lost his voice, and... Well, that's it. He had a great week. They get drinks easier. The phone signal was better. The staff were friendlier. Wi-Fi still needs to be better. It does need to be better. I think the big question for the Jockey Club, and again, Guy will be talking about this, the Jockey Club makes a very significant part of its entire annual income from the festival, which is why last year they had to make prize money cuts. Yeah. What the Jockey Club has to find a way of doing, and I've written about this in my
Racing Post column tomorrow, is diversifying its income so that as an organisation, it is less reliant on the money that comes in from the festival. Yeah, on the profit. It needs to look more at trying to make more profit out of its other festivals. It needs to make more money.
So more self-sustainable, the smaller courses.
Yeah, it needs to make more money out of events, out of conferences. It needs to make more money out of its property portfolio, which might mean that on some racecourses it looks to follow a Newbury model and build property around racecourses, not stopping racecourses racing, but making more money out of non-race days, because it can't continue having such a big percentage of its annual income from 4 days of horse racing.
Because obviously it then puts an enormous amount of pressure on what you can and can't do at the festival. Peter Maloney, who has in recent years been most notable for guiding the career of Honeysuckle on behalf of owner Kenny Alexander. He was one of the most vocal proponents of the Mayor's Hurdle, a very staunch defender of the race, particularly when Honeysuckle was running in it after her 2 champion hurdle victories. He's had something of a change of heart insofar as he says in its current format, watching on Lossiemouth the other day, that uncompetitive race, he doesn't want to give that whole programme, to paraphrase, a bad name. So even if somebody who's even been its most ardent proponent is saying you've got to change the conditions of the Mayor's Hurdle, isn't it time to change the conditions of the Mayor's Hurdle?
Quite possibly, yeah. And obviously, if it wasn't there, you can't go for it. But one thing I will defend is that, you know, this year we saw a very impressive, and I know Lee touched on this earlier on, but we saw a very impressive horse winning the Mayor's Hurdle. But as a trainer, you run the horse in the race that you most likely think you can win for your owners. That was the Mayor's Hurdle. She won. She did her job. And Rich Ritchie had a Cheltenham Festival winner. I
mean, we could go round and round and round and round.
She might have won the champion hurdle.
But,
while it's there, it's on offer. They're going to take it.
But is there an optimal solution, Lee? Have you got? Everyone's got their own theory about what they should make it a Grade 2, cap the rating limit, move it to Aintree, move it to the Cheltenham April meeting. Every Tom, Dick and Harry's got a view on it. What's yours?
Well, they looked at it during the review during the summer. They ultimately decided to do nothing with it. They will now, I'm sure, have to do something with it, because I don't think you can continue as we are. The Mayor's Hurdle at the festival has, in itself, as a single race, been a massive driver in changing the popularity of
which we discussed earlier in the
we did, and it has worked, Nick. It has worked, and it's a net plus benefit. But
what's the Mottershead solution?
I would very simply go with what's been suggested before. You have a Grade 2 race with penalties. So Lossiemouth, had she run in the Mayor's Hurdle, she would have carried a penalty as a Hatton's Grace winner during the winter. I think that makes it less attractive to connections. It makes it a less prestigious race to win. So that's what I do. And I don't think every division does not need a championship race. You know, if you want to have a Grade 1 Mayor's Hurdle in Britain, you could have it at the Grand National Meeting, you could have it at Cheltenham in April, you could have it at the end of season day at Sandown. It doesn't have to be at the Cheltenham Festival.
So a quick word on Frankie Dettori, who has been declared bankrupt this week, or has declared himself bankrupt. This was, as you'll know, as a result of his engaging in what was a roundabout tax avoidance scheme, a scheme that had been sold to him or his representatives by somebody who has been proven many times to be pretty disreputable. There is a very good thread on this on X by a tax expert who knows damn sight more than me that will explain it.
Yeah, and me as well, Nick. But yeah, it's definitely worth looking at that thread.
Dan Needle is the tax expert.
Dan Needle, yeah, who points a finger of blame at a tax advisor that Frankie Dettori had used, who perhaps wasn't as qualified as some in the field might have been to deliver that sort of advice. And certainly the advice that Frankie appears to have been given was not wholly successful. As Frankie said in his statement, it is sad, it is embarrassing for Frankie Dettori that this has happened. You have to say, Nick, that roller coaster life that Dettori always talks about, there's so many ups but so many downs, and this is clearly a down. And I guess it underlines why he's riding in America now, and probably why he will be for a few years to come, sadly. Well, not sadly, he'll still be riding, but
well,
he needs
indeed. Though, I mean, having witnessed him at close hand in the last couple of years, his enthusiasm for riding, I can't say this for certain, but I'm fairly sure it can't only be motivated by having to make do and pay an enormous tax bill. I'm sure that's important, and he's earning a lot more money out there than he would be here. But
yeah, absolutely. But I still think, you know, people who read this story will look at, you know, how much Frankie will have earned from horse racing in his career, and think, how on earth can this situation have occurred? And he says in his own statement, it's a lesson to people who are in a different financial bracket to the rest of us, that you've really got to be careful with your finances, and passing responsibility to someone else without maybe watching what's going on as close as you should is a dangerous thing.
Yeah, because ultimately it's your responsibility, no matter how many advisors you might have. Right, that was this week in Talking Points.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.